Right now, in Texas, there's a city adding more residents per year than most American towns have total population. Another place quadrupled in size during the time it took your kid to finish elementary school. One community is pumping groundwater so aggressively that the land is cracking open. Texas doesn't do anything small, including mistakes. Last year, Texas absorbed over 470,000 new arrivals. That's roughly 1,300 people every single day choosing the Lone Star State. Most aren't heading to Houston or Dallas proper. They're flooding into suburban towns north of Austin, east of San Antonio, and scattered across the I-35 corridor, where cornfields stood 5 years ago. The electric grid is strained. Aquifers are dropping. Roads designed for 10,000 vehicles now handle 80,000. The people who lived in these places when they were actually small towns are watching everything they moved there for disappear under asphalt and strip malls. We've got a city that built 11 elementary schools in 1 decade and still ran out of classrooms. A town where home prices jumped 90% in 3 years. A place experiencing ground fissures from overpumping water. And a community where developers are building homes faster than the fire department can staff stations to protect them. If you want to watch Texas infrastructure buckle under its own success, you're in the right spot. Hit that like button and let's get started. Number 12. New Braunfels. New Braunfels sits between Austin and San Antonio on I-35, which in Texas real estate terms is like owning beachfront property. German immigrants founded this town in 1845. For over 150 years, it stayed relatively quiet, known for Schlitterbahn, the Comal River, and Wurstfest. That version of New Braunfels is dead. The population went from roughly 36,000 in 2000 to over 104,000 by 2023. That's 189% growth in 2 decades. Comal County, where New Braunfels serves as county seat, ranked as the 3rd fastest-growing county in America during the last census period, with a 54% population explosion. The Comal River, one of the shortest rivers in the United States, at just 2.5 miles long, is fed entirely by springs. Those springs depend on the Edwards Aquifer, and the Edwards Aquifer is being drained faster than rainfall can recharge it. During the 2022 drought, Comal Springs came dangerously close to stopping flow entirely for the first time in recorded history. If that happens, several endangered species living exclusively in those springs will go extinct, not relocated, extinct. Meanwhile, developers keep submitting plans. The city approved thousands of additional housing units in North New Braunfels, despite public outcry about I-35 already resembling a parking lot during evening commutes. Local officials estimate they need close to $300 million in transportation improvements just to maintain current service levels, let alone accommodate future growth. A resident who moved there in 1998 told the local paper she remembers when you could drive Loop 337 without seeing another car. Now she avoids it completely during rush hours. The town that attracted people with its small city charm is becoming the sprawling suburb it was supposed to be an escape from. Number 11. Prosper. Prosper is located in Collin and Denton counties, north of Dallas. The name turned out to be prophetic, though not necessarily in a good way for anyone who liked the town as it was. In 2000, Prosper had 2,097 residents. The 2020 census recorded 30,174. By 2025, estimates put the population near 40,000. That's roughly 1,800% growth in 25 years. The median home price sits around $625,000. Prosper attracts white-collar families working in Dallas's corporate corridor who want newer construction, good schools, and that suburban Texas lifestyle. They're getting the first 2. The third is debatable when you're sitting in traffic on the Dallas North Tollway watching the minutes tick by. Prosper Independent School District opened 6 new campuses between 2016 and 2023. The district enrollment exploded from around 3,200 students in 2010 to over 23,000 by 2024. They're building as fast as bond elections allow, and it's still not enough. Portable buildings. Elementary school campuses. Class sizes creep upward. Parents who move there specifically for the schools are starting to question whether Prosper's educational reputation can survive the onslaught. Here's where it gets expensive. Prosper has no property tax base from commercial development to offset residential growth. It's almost entirely homes. That means homeowners carry the full weight of funding rapid expansion through property taxes that keep climbing. When your tax bill jumps 20% in 2 years and traffic still hasn't improved, the value proposition starts getting fuzzy. Developers aren't slowing down. Massive master plan communities are still in early phases with thousands of additional lots approved. Prosper is prospering, if you measure prosperity strictly in building permits and ignore everything else. Number 10. Pflugerville. Pflugerville sits just north of Austin in Travis and Williamson counties. The town used to be a punchline because of its name. Now it's a case study in what happens when affordable housing near a booming metro stops being affordable. The population increased from roughly 16,000 in 2000 to over 75,000 by 2024. Growth topped 400% across 2 decades, with particularly aggressive expansion after 2010, when Austin's housing market priced out middle-income buyers. Pflugerville became the overflow valve. Families who couldn't afford Round Rock or Cedar Park could still find sub-$300,000 homes here as recently as 2019. Those days are finished. Median home prices crossed $425,000 by 2025, with no ceiling in sight. The city added 7 new schools since 2000. Traffic on FM 685 and Pecan Street backs up for miles during commute hours. The city has been fighting with the Texas Department of Transportation for years to get improvements on State Highway 130. But funding remains a political football. Water is the deeper issue. Pflugerville draws from the Edwards Aquifer and the Colorado River system. Both are under stress. During the 2022-2023 drought, outdoor watering restrictions went into effect across the region. Lake Travis and Lake Buchanan, which supply water to the Highland Lake system, dropped to levels not seen in decades. Adding 60,000 residents in 20 years doesn't make that math any easier. One long-term resident described attending city council meetings in the 1990s, held in a small room with maybe a dozen people present. Now those meetings are streamed online, packed with angry homeowners, demanding someone explain why their commute tripled and their property taxes doubled, while potholes remain unfilled. Nobody at City Hall has a good answer. Number 9. Celina. Celina is the Texas growth story people outside the state don't know about yet. Located north of Frisco in Collin and Denton counties, Celina went from a sleepy farm town to a population rocket ship in under 15 years. The 2010 census counted 6,028 people. By 2020, that number hit 16,739. The 2024 estimate exceeds 45,000. Celina regularly appears on fastest-growing small cities lists, often ranking in the top 3 nationally. The town approved over 60,000 residential units in its long-range development plans. 60,000 units in a town that had 6,000 people in 2010. The developers see opportunity. City officials see tax revenue. Current residents see their 2-lane farm roads turned into 6-lane thoroughfares, cutting through neighborhoods that didn't exist 3 years ago. Celina ISD opened 3 new elementary schools between 2020 and 2024. A new high school is under construction, set to open for the 2026-2027 school year. Despite that construction spree, the district projects it will need at least 4 additional elementary campuses and another high school by 2030 just to keep up with approved residential development. The fiscal impact gets complicated. Celina operates under Texas's property tax system, which means explosive residential growth without corresponding commercial development creates a revenue shortfall. The town is residential heavy, with limited retail and commercial space. That forces homeowners to shoulder more of the tax burden to fund the infrastructure expansion their own arrival necessitated. And then there's the aquifer. Celina sits above the Trinity Aquifer. The North Texas Municipal Water District supplies treated water, but the underlying groundwater supports the region's long-term capacity. Studies show the Trinity Aquifer is being depleted faster than natural recharge rates in this part of North Texas, adding tens of thousands of residents who expect green lawns in a semi-arid climate accelerates that depletion. One farmer whose family worked the land since the 1920s sold out to developers in 2021. He told a reporter he got a price he couldn't refuse, but he wouldn't recognize the place in 5 years. He was right. The farm is now a subdivision called Mustang Lakes, with homes starting in the mid-$400,000. Number 8. Georgetown. Georgetown sits north of Austin in Williamson County and holds a unique distinction. It has been named the fastest-growing city in America multiple times by the U.S. Census Bureau, not in Texas, in the entire country. The population climbed from approximately 28,000 in 2000 to over 86,000 by 2024. That's more than 200% growth with no signs of stopping. Williamson County as a whole gained over 176,000 residents between 2010 and 2020, ranking it among the fastest-growing counties nationwide. Georgetown attracted retirees with its historic downtown square, Sun City, Texas retirement community, and slower pace compared to Austin. That demographic mix is shifting rapidly as younger families move in seeking affordability relative to Austin's skyrocketing prices. Schools reflect that shift. Georgetown ISD enrollment went from around 8,500 students in 2010 to over 16,000 by 2024. The district opened multiple new elementary schools and is planning further expansion to accommodate thousands of additional students projected over the next decade. Traffic is where the growth pain shows most clearly. I-35 through Georgetown is a notorious bottleneck. The Texas Department of Transportation has been working on expansion projects for years, but construction can't keep pace with the volume increase. Residents report 45-minute commutes for trips that took 15 minutes a decade ago. Here's the kicker. Georgetown runs on 100% renewable energy through its municipal utility, Georgetown Utility Systems. It's a selling point the city loves to promote. What they mention less frequently is that the fixed-price wind and solar contracts the city signed years ago locked them into rates that became financially problematic when energy prices shifted. Ratepayers saw increases, and the city had to navigate complicated contract renegotiations. The renewable energy commitment is admirable. It also doesn't solve the fundamental issue that adding 60,000 people in 20 years to a town built for 28,000 creates infrastructure deficits no amount of solar panels can fix. Number 7. Anna. Anna sits in Collin County, about 45 miles north of Dallas. For most of its existence, Anna was a farming community where everyone knew everyone, and the high school football team was the biggest event of the week. Then North Texas sprawl reached it. Population in 2000, 1,225. Population in 2020, 14,568. By 2025, estimates approach 25,000. That's over 2,000% growth in 25 years. The development pipeline is even more staggering. Anna has approved master-planned communities that could add over 40,000 residents within the next 2 decades. The city's planning documents project a build-out population exceeding 100,000. Anna ISD built 6 new schools between 2015 and 2024. Enrollment surged from around 2,400 students in 2013 to over 11,000 by 2024. The district passed a $329 million bond package in 2023 to fund additional campuses and infrastructure, but even that massive investment only covers near-term needs. Water supply concerns dominate city council discussions. Anna relies on North Texas Municipal Water District allocations and groundwater. The Collin County area sits above the Trinity Aquifer, which multiple studies indicate is being drawn down faster than it recharges. As the Dallas-Fort Worth Metro expands northward, every town along that corridor competes for the same finite water resources. One longtime Anna resident described attending the local 4th of July parade in 2005 when you could still see open pastures from Main Street. Now those pastures are subdivisions with names like The Preserve and Slater Creek, where homes sell for $450,000, and the HOA fees fund amenities like pools and playgrounds that didn't exist in Old Anna because kids just played in the creek. The town's character hasn't evolved. It's been erased and replaced with something else entirely. Whether that's progress or loss depends entirely on when you arrived. Number 6. Leander. Leander is northwest of Austin in Travis and Williamson counties. It quintupled in population between 2000 and 2020, going from roughly 7,600 residents to over 68,000. By 2025, the population exceeds 80,000. The city sits along the Capital Metro Rail Red Line, which connects it to downtown Austin. That transit link made Leander attractive to commuters priced out of closer-in suburbs. Developers responded by building thousands of homes as fast as crews could pour foundations. Leander ISD enrollment exploded from approximately 6,000 students in 2000 to over 40,000 by 2024. The district opened 11 new elementary schools in 1 decade. 11 elementary schools. The district is currently planning additional middle and high schools to handle continued growth, projecting enrollment could hit 50,000 within 5 years. Despite that frantic construction pace, schools are crowded. Some elementary campuses exceed 1,000 students. Class sizes push the upper limits of district policy. Teachers report feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of new students cycling through every year. Traffic on US 183 and FM 2243 is a daily disaster. The roads were designed for a small town, not a city of 80,000. Texas Department of Transportation projects to widen and improve these corridors are perpetually underfunded and years behind schedule. Residents sitting in traffic have plenty of time to contemplate their life choices. Water comes from the Colorado River, via the Brazos River Authority, and local groundwater. Like every town in this region, Leander is pumping more groundwater than is being naturally replaced. During dry years, restrictions go into effect, and residents are told to let their lawns go brown while new construction continues unabated in every direction. City officials promote Leander's growth as economic success. Property tax revenues have increased substantially, funding new parks, libraries, and public safety facilities. What they don't advertise as loudly is that even with those increased revenues, the city struggles to keep infrastructure maintenance ahead of deterioration caused by exponentially higher usage. The community that attracted families seeking small-town Texas living near Austin has become another crowded suburban sprawl zone where near Austin increasingly means 90 minutes in traffic. If you're still watching, you clearly understand that what's happening in Texas isn't sustainable. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We cover stories like this every week. Number 5, Kyle is located between Austin and San Antonio on I-35 in Hays County. It regularly ranks among the fastest-growing cities in the nation. Population went from around 5,300 in 2000 to over 55,000 by 2024. That's more than 900% growth. Hays County itself is one of the fastest-growing counties in America, expanding over 53% between 2010 and 2020. Kyle absorbed a massive share of that growth as the most accessible city along the I-35 corridor between the two metros. Kyle originally attracted families with median home prices well below Austin's. That advantage is evaporating. Median home prices in Kyle climbed past $400,000 by 2025, up from around $180,000 in 2015. That's a 122% increase in one decade. Hays Kist, which serves Kyle, saw enrollment jump from roughly 13,000 students in 2010 to over 25,000 by 2024. The district has been in perpetual construction mode, opening new schools almost annually while simultaneously dealing with overcrowding in existing buildings. Bond elections pass regularly because there's no alternative. Without new schools, the system collapses. Water is the existential issue. Kyle draws from the Edwards Aquifer and the Trinity Aquifer. Both are under stress. The Edwards Aquifer Authority has implemented strict pumping limits, and during droughts, spring flow to the Comal and San Marcos Springs drops to critical levels. The Texas Water Development Board projects that by 2030, demand in this region will outstrip supply during drought conditions unless significant new sources are developed. Adding 50,000 residents in 20 years makes that water math significantly worse. Kyle is literally building itself into a water crisis. Traffic on I-35 through Kyle is legendary for all the wrong reasons. The highway is under constant construction as TxDOT attempts to expand capacity, but the construction itself creates bottlenecks that make commutes nightmarish. Residents describe trips to Austin or San Antonio that should take 25 minutes, stretching to 90 minutes during peak hours. One longtime Kyle resident said he moved there in 2003 because it felt like a small town with access to two big cities. Now it feels like a big city with access to traffic jams in two directions. Number 4. Liberty Hill. Liberty Hill is in Williamson County, northwest of Austin. It's the kind of place most people outside Texas have never heard of, which is exactly why it ended up on this list. Population in 2000, 967 people. Population in 2020, 4,807. By 2025, estimates exceed 10,000. That's over 900% growth, with thousands of additional homes approved and under construction. Liberty Hill sat quiet for decades, as a rural community with modest ranches and farmland. Then the Austin sprawl reached it, and developers saw cheap land with highway access. Everything changed. The city approved multiple large-scale residential developments, including Orchard Ridge, Taft's Gate, and Serenata. These aren't small subdivisions. They're master-planned communities with thousands of lots. Liberty Hill's comprehensive plan contemplates a build-out population potentially exceeding 50,000. Liberty Hill ISD scrambled to respond. The district opened a new elementary school in 2021 and another in 2023. A third elementary campus is planned. The high school is expanding, Enrollment went from around 1,400 students in 2015 to over 4,000 by 2024. Here's the complication. Liberty Hill is small, rural, and lacks the commercial tax base to fund this expansion without heavily burdening residential property owners. Tax rates remain relatively high compared to neighboring areas, and homeowners are starting to feel the squeeze between rising home values increasing their tax bills and the need for continuous infrastructure investment. Roads are another sore point. FM 18069 and Ronald Reagan Boulevard handle most traffic, and both are overwhelmed during commute hours. Residents report dangerous conditions with limited shoulders, no turn lanes, and vehicles traveling 70 miles per hour mixing with school buses and residential traffic. The Texas Department of Transportation has limited funding for improvements in smaller communities like Liberty Hill. The city is essentially on its own to figure out how to move 50,000 people through a road network designed for under 1,000. One farmer sold his family's 200-acre ranch to developers in 2019. He said the money was life-changing, but watching them grade the land his grandfather worked felt like attending a funeral. That land is now 600 homes with a community pool and a dog park. Number 3. Buda. Buda sits just south of Austin in Hays County along I-35. It's pronounced Buda, and if you get it wrong, locals will correct you immediately. The population grew from approximately 2,400 in 2000 to over 23,000 by 2024. That's 858% growth. The city markets itself as a more affordable alternative to Austin, with a charming historic downtown. That branding worked. Families flooded in, and developers followed. Hays PS serves Buda, and the enrollment surge forced the district into crisis mode. New schools opened in rapid succession. Boundaries were redrawn constantly. Parents report their children attending 3 different elementary schools in 5 years, not because they moved, but because the district kept opening new buildings and reshuffling assignments. Traffic through Buda on I-35 is a known choke point. The highway narrows in this section, and congestion during peak travel times is severe. TxDOT has expansion projects planned, but construction timelines stretch years into the future while traffic volumes increase every month. Here's where Buda gets interesting. Ground fissures. Yes, actual cracks in the earth opening up in parts of Hays County due to overpumping groundwater from the Trinity Aquifer. When you extract water faster than it's replaced, the ground compacts and fractures. Some fissures in the county measure several feet wide and hundreds of feet long. Buda relies heavily on groundwater, and the rate of extraction is not sustainable. The Hays Trinity Groundwater Conservation District has implemented regulations to slow pumping, but enforcement is difficult, and the political will to deny new development based on water scarcity is virtually non-existent. One resident moved to Buda in 2008, specifically because it was small and quiet. She recently told a reporter she's planning to sell and move further out because Buda now has the same traffic, crowds, and stress she left Austin to escape. The problem, she said, is there's nowhere left to run. The sprawl is catching up everywhere. Number 2. Frisco. Frisco is in Collin and Denton counties, north of Dallas. It's not a small town anymore, but it grew from small town status so rapidly that it belongs on this list as a cautionary tale of what happens when growth goes into hyperdrive. Population in 2000, 33,714. Population in 2020, 200,509. By 2025, estimates approach 230,000. That's 582% growth in 2 decades. Frisco built itself into a sports and entertainment destination. It's home to the Dallas Cowboys practice facility, the Frisco Rough Riders minor league baseball team, FC Dallas Soccer, and dozens of sports complexes hosting tournaments year-round. The city marketed itself aggressively and succeeded beyond anyone's projections. Frisco ISD enrollment went from around 28,000 students in 2010 to over 70,000 by 2024. The district is one of the largest in Texas and operates over 80 campuses. Despite that massive infrastructure, schools remain crowded, and the district is planning additional buildings to accommodate continued growth. The traffic situation is absurd. The Dallas North Tollway, Preston Road, and Main Street are clogged during rush hours. Frisco added population faster than roads could be widened. Even with toll lanes and expanded interchanges, congestion is a daily reality. Commercial development kept pace with residential growth, which helps the tax base, but it also means Frisco feels less like a community and more like a never-ending strip of shopping centers, chain restaurants, and corporate offices. The small-town identity vanished completely somewhere around 2010. Water supply is managed through the North Texas Municipal Water District, which draws from multiple reservoirs in the region. Those reservoirs experienced record low levels during the 2022-2023 drought. Adding 200,000 residents in 20 years doesn't make water management easier, especially when those residents expect lush lawns and unlimited consumption. Frisco succeeded by every conventional growth metric. It has jobs, amenities, good schools, and high property values. It also has traffic, overcrowding, and an identity crisis. What's left when a small town grows so fast it becomes unrecognizable? Frisco is the answer, and it's not entirely reassuring. Number 1. Georgetown. Revisited with depth. Georgetown takes the top spot not because it's the largest or fastest in raw numbers. It's neither, but because it represents the purest distillation of unsustainable Texas growth. This city has been named the fastest growing in America not once, but multiple times. Between 2010 and 2020, Georgetown's growth rate hit 105%. The population more than doubled in one decade. By 2024, over 86,000 people call Georgetown home, and the development pipeline suggests that number could hit 150,000 by 2035. Sun City, Texas, a massive retirement community, anchors part of that growth. But Georgetown isn't just retirees anymore. Young families working in Austin's tech sector discovered they could buy larger homes in Georgetown for less money, even factoring in the commute. That demographic shift is remaking the city's identity in real time. The infrastructure costs are staggering. Georgetown operates its own municipal utility, which gives it more control than cities relying on external providers. But that also means Georgetown ratepayers fund all the infrastructure expansion. Water and wastewater systems require constant upgrades. The city has invested hundreds of millions in treatment capacity, pipeline expansions, and well drilling. Roads can't keep up. I-35 is the main artery, and it's perpetually congested. TxDOT projects to expand the highway move forward at a glacial pace, while traffic volumes compound annually. Inner-city roads like Williams Drive and River Bend Drive experience backups that didn't exist 5 years ago. Schools remain under pressure. Georgetown ISD enrollment doubled since 2010, and new campuses open regularly. The district passed a $350 million bond in 2022 to fund additional schools and renovations, but bond debt adds to property tax burdens homeowners already struggling with rising valuations. The renewable energy story adds a layer of complexity. Georgetown committed to 100% renewable energy in 2012, a bold move that generated national headlines. The city signed long-term contracts for wind and solar power, locking in rates that seemed reasonable at the time. When natural gas prices dropped and the energy market shifted, those fixed contracts became financial liabilities. Ratepayers faced increases, and the city renegotiated contracts to reduce costs. But the episode illustrated the risks of ambitious commitments in rapidly changing markets. Water remains the ultimate constraint. Georgetown draws from the Edwards Aquifer and Lake Georgetown. Both sources face limits. The Edwards Aquifer is managed by strict pumping regulations. Lake Georgetown water rights are allocated, and additional capacity requires expensive agreements with neighboring water authorities. Adding 70,000 residents since 2000 pushed the system to the edge of its capacity. During the 2022 drought, Lake Georgetown levels dropped significantly. Outdoor watering restrictions went into effect. Officials publicly discussed the need for long-term conservation and alternative supply development. Yet new home construction continues at a breakneck pace. One resident who moved to Georgetown in 2005 for its small-town charm recently said she doesn't recognize it anymore. The historic square is still there, but it's surrounded by sprawl that stretches for miles in every direction. The quiet streets are gone. The sense of community diluted by constant turnover. She's not leaving, but she mourns what Georgetown used to be. That's the Georgetown paradox. It's successful, growing, attracting investment and people. It's also losing the very qualities that made it attractive in the first place. And there's no mechanism to stop the cycle because Texas operates on a pro-growth model where cities compete for development and developers hold most of the leverage. Georgetown is what happens when everything goes right in terms of growth metrics and wrong in terms of livability. It's the #1 town on this list because it's the clearest example of growth spiraling beyond the control of the people experiencing it. And that's 12 Texas towns growing so fast that infrastructure can't catch up, schools can't catch up, water supplies can't catch up, and in some cases, the actual ground is cracking open from the strain. Texas added over 470,000 people last year alone. Projections suggest the state will add another 10 million residents by 2050. Most of that growth will concentrate in the I-35 corridor and the sprawling suburbs ringing Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin. The towns on this list are just the beginning. Property taxes are rising as cities scramble to fund infrastructure. Water conflicts are intensifying as demand outpaces supply. Traffic congestion rivals major metropolitan areas. And the small-town Texas identity that attracted many of these new residents is vanishing under the weight of its own popularity. Some of these towns will adapt and manage the transition successfully. Others will struggle under debt, overcrowding, and infrastructure failures for decades. But the growth shows no signs of slowing because Texas has jobs, relatively affordable housing compared to coastal states, no state income tax, and a political climate that actively encourages development. If you made it this far, you understand that growth isn't always progress and that infrastructure debt comes due eventually. Subscribe because we cover stories like this every week. And if you want to see what happens when cities grow too fast and the bill comes due, check out the video on screen now.